Hey there, everybody. Welcome back. Gonna do another kind of short-ish, kind of quick demo video. This is sort of acting as our practice for some bigger content that we've got planned here. But for the sake of testing everything, we're going to go ahead and cover point directional light sources and drawing cast shadows based on those. So in our last video, we covered omnidirectional, which means really, really far away light source like the sun. And this is more of if there's a light bulb in the room or a light source in the close proximity to your object. This is how you would shade or draw the shadow and figure out the correct dimensions of it based on what you've got. So let's jump right into it. And again, as I mentioned previously, I drew all these primitives real quick just before we started recording to save time, but I will be covering how to do that and how perspective works and all that kind of fun stuff in future episodes. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you subscribe, because you need to. So big difference with point sources is you've got to figure out where they are relative to your object. So what I'm going to do is just kind of pick a spot. And you can draw the whole plane and the whole grid or use some sort of reference if you so choose, but I'm just going to keep things simple. I'm going to put it out kind of far, that way it doesn't do anything super crazy on us. And then you've got to pick the height as well. And I'm going to put this up as high as I can, and it still may not be enough, and you'll see what I mean in just a second. So this gives us where it is on the ground, and this gives us this is our light bulb up here. Little light bulb. Now, similar to how omnidirectional things work, we want to draw lines off of the base corners of our object, and then use the angle of the light to create an intersection, and that'll give us the points that we want to plot out and draw our shadow based on. But in this particular case, whereas omnidirectional, they're all parallel to each other and it's pretty simple. Here, they're all relative to these 2 points. And this is going to fly off the page on this one, I can already tell. So I'm going to take the ground point and I'm going to draw a line connecting through my base points for my object. So I'm going to hit that first one, pretty close. First try, not too bad. And I'm going to draw, I can draw one through here, but it's not actually going to matter. I just know that from experience because it's going to get swallowed up by, this whole edge is sort of irrelevant from this angle, but that's what you would do. I am going to draw one through there. And I'm kind of just keeping it light just to keep the mess under control. Those light construction line weights are always good. And I'm draw one to that back corner, which you can see I've ghosted in here just very faintly. So that's where the back corner of my box would be. It's not actually visible from this angle, but that's it. And I need that in order to draw this shadow properly. And honestly, for most of what you'd be doing, you could probably wing it and be okay. But if we're gonna learn it, we're gonna learn it right. Now, I've mentioned this before. I do rotate the page a lot as I'm working because that allows me to draw straight lines because there's only a certain range of motion that your arm can do that for kind of a long distance. And that's a given angle from your body, and we'll actually cover that separately as well. I am trying to keep it to a minimum for the sake of the camera, but there's a limit to what I can, like here, I've basically got to turn the page portrait in order to get that, without getting a super wobbly, nasty line. So bear with me. I am now drawing a line connecting my height point of the actual where the light bulb is through the top corners of the object. And what that's done is given me an intersection here. This one I'm almost positive is going to fly off the page, but let's double check. And that's okay. Ah, yeah, it's going to be right out there somewhere. But that's all right. We can work with it. So Sometimes things go off the page, he said, as if he didn't put all the events into motion that caused it. And there gives me my third point right there. Same exact thing, except I use that back edge that's really not barely visible. Now, I want to connect those dots, and I'm just going to take an estimate as to where that one is. It's kind of out there-ish. Same thing over here. And more there. And then I'm going to connect the outermost edges that would form our shadow. See how I said that one doesn't matter? Because whatever it forms is within the mass of this shadow here, so it doesn't make a difference. And just darken that up. And there you go. That is how the shadow of that box would appear with a light source that was kind of over here. It fans out is really the key element that's different from an omnidirectional shadow. Where everything is parallel. So here, the proximity of that light source is causing the shadow to really just form this wedge shape. And then you just use the top corners to create the limits of what part of that is actually, you know, which part we care about. I'm just gonna try and save some time here, so we're not running super long. So now we've got a cylinder. A cylinder is basically two ellipses. A fatter one on the bottom and a thinner one up top. Oh. Just pop my neck, sorry about that. I'll break it. Two ellipses, skinny one up top, fat one on the bottom. Ellipses, as we will cover in, again, other videos, have a minor axis and a major axis. So the minor axis is the shortest distance between points, so right through the middle from this angle. And the major axis is the longest distance between points on the ellipse. So it's like that. On this particular, for this particular purpose, I only care about finding those sort of quadrant points there, where those axes connect to the edges of the ellipse. So I'm gonna do that for the top one, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm gonna do that for the bottom one as well. And again, I deliberately drew this so it's just straight across and straight up and down. And then the back edge of that ellipse is actually a little bit wrong, but that's okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Great. Now what I'm going to do is just sort of put a light source out here. Actually, you know what? Let's bring it forward this time. And I'm going to draw it super tall, so everything minimally goes off the page. My other option was to draw very tiny objects and try and demonstrate this. I didn't like that either, so that's just, it is what it is. So what I'm going to do is connect that ground point through these 4 points on the ground. See how that works. And I do want all 4 of them this time, even the one that is going to be somewhat covered up. And if you saw my other video on the omnidirectional shadows, you know why. If you haven't, just buckle up, it'll be okay. So we're going to come from the top now, connecting through those and finding the intersection. So this one will connect with this line, that second one, if I go to that point. Ooh, so close. There we go. This one will go to this outermost line. That's just where, I mean, if I draw it forever, it'll hit all of them, but that's just where I want to stop. Outer edge, outer line. Oh, we just barely missed it. It's pretty close. And then back one to that second line. Oops. So 1, 2, 3, and just barely 4 right there. Oops. I just barely missed that outer connection, but it's right there. What we want to do is basically make a sort of an ovoid shape that makes a continuous curve through those points, or what would be those points out there. And that's simulating an ellipse that has been horribly distorted by the powers of photons and perspective. And now you can kind of see it. So that is going to give us our outer edge. The inner side here doesn't matter so much, except insofar as it helps us create kind of a smooth curve. And then we're just going to connect effectively the tangents of these two shapes. So it's not quite straight to that point there, but it's pretty close. Same thing in the back. There, that is our shadow for our cylinder from a light source, kind of up front and a little bit above it. Cool. Okay, so here's the thing about pyramids and cones. They are dead simple in both point and omnidirectional shadow conditions. All I'm gonna do is put a light source back here, and I'm actually probably gonna use the same one for both of these. I'm gonna draw it up as high as I can go, and you can put it lower, but it's just gonna push the shadow way off the page, that's all. And now I've basically got all the information I need. I need the point of the pyramid or the cone, and the center point, where that is corresponding below it, and its foundation. So I've already got that based on how I constructed these, but in case you don't know, minor axis, major axis of the ellipse that forms the base of this cone gives me the center point. And then since this was made off of a square plane, I just need to connect to the corners, and that gives me the center point there. Pretty easy. Now I've already started it here, but I need to draw a line from the base of my light through the center points of either one of these. So that's there. Great. And now I need to draw a line from the light source through the point of the cone and the pyramid till it intersects. A little bit tricky when you're kind of pulling the pen there. It goes way off the page. Yeah, I had a feeling that was going to happen. This one should work though. There we go. Pyramid's a little shorter, that's why. Okay, so a couple things. Well, first of all, now what I'm going to do is take that point, which is roughly there, and connect it to the tangent of the base of this cone. And that would be my shadow. And some of you are going, that's exactly how you did it in the other video for omnidirectional ones. And you're correct. That's pretty much it. Technically, there is a slight flare that will happen with a lighting condition like that on a cone. I've seen a very few guys who will draw it kind of like this thing going on. But basically what happens is that's counteracted by the fact that the pyramid is, or the cone is just receding as it goes up anyways, and usually that effect is greater. And you wind up with something that looks basically how it did in the other condition as well. If you really want to do an in-depth study on it, you're welcome to get some like primitive shapes and set up a lighting in your house and just draw what you see there from life. But generally with design sketching, we're getting paid by the hour, so that's good enough for effectively everything. Similar situation with the pyramid over here, except I'm going to connect the corners like that. And again, if you really want to be technical, there's probably a bit of a flare happening like that, based on the fact that this light source is going to fan, but yeah, no one will care. That's really what it comes down to. Basically the same in both lighting conditions. That just is how it is. I usually draw these omni just to start with, because why even do the rest of it? Unless it's part of a more complex, like, compound shape, and then you have sort of a different animal. For example, if we wanted to turn this into a box. You know what? It's going to be too tight on that. Let me grab another page. Nice clean page. Center up. There we go. So let's say we drew something with a pyramid on top, and I'm going to draw this a little bit smaller so it all fits. All right, so what I've done is I found the center point of both of those planes and the pyramid. I really only needed the bottom one there. Cool, so we're gonna throw a light source out here. I've got more room out if I go this way, so I'm gonna put it over here. And I'm gonna draw it up to there. And again, you can put it lower, but then it just sort of goes completely off the page, so. I'm going to draw through the center point of the pyramid, which is just straight down into the base of the square. Same, they're collinear. Because effectively I can treat this as if it's just a pyramid with its sides chopped off, right? And then I would just have a bigger base and I'd do the same thing as before, but that's fine. Because I only need that to connect. That point. Now we're going to put that point there, and that's going to be our pyramid point. And we're going to put that on pause for a second. Now we're going to draw the shadow of a box. And I have this lovely box right down here at the base of our pyramid. We're going to forget this whole point thing exists up here. Don't care. So how do we do that before? Well, we connect the base of the light through the corners. That one, right about that angle. Chris, come on. I don't know why that's giving me so much trouble, jeez. There we go, good enough. Whew, that was tough. Every once in a while, your arm goes, nope, can't connect that. Don't know what's going on there. Okay. Part of it's because I always prefer to go from left to right because I'm right-handed. So I'm having to kind of work double time here in order to connect, but that's fine, that's fine. Excuses. All right, so. Really got to get the angle right before I even start. One, two, three. Cool, I've got a box shadow. Really sloppy box shadow. Except right at the top here, instead of connecting those 2 points, what I'm going to do is run them through my pyramid. And there you go. That's where the omni, or the point light source will make a difference with a pyramid type shape. really only if it's in conjunction with another shape that is more heavily distorted by that type of lighting. You know, if I put this lower, we're going to get something that really fans out and then comes to a point, which I will probably demonstrate in the future. For now, I'm going to end this because I've been talking for 25 minutes, and it's roughly 15 minutes longer than most people's YouTube attention span. So, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.